Exhibit 2. So Ms. Lentz.
All right, I'm gonna start over here for a second. Ms. Klusterman, in a minute, I'm gonna ask you to watch Plaintiff's Exhibit 2. Can you explain to the court what Exhibit 2 is?
Yes, it's Kevin talking.
And who is the adult male present in the video?
Kevin.
Did you film Exhibit 2?
I did.
When did you film Exhibit 2?
May 1, 2018.
Is Exhibit 2 the entirety of the clip you filmed?
Yes, it is.
And is it an accurate representation of the defendant at the time you filmed it?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
Well, we haven't seen Exhibit 2 yet, so I think we need to see the exhibit and have it disseminated before it's admitted.
Your Honor, we went through this earlier and you told me to do the foundation.
I know, and then Ms. Schmelzer agreed to that process, so now she's flipping, and she's already seen it. We had a whole conversation off the record about the videos you've seen. Go ahead and show it then. I don't know why.
All right, so I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna share my screen.
This, for the record, is not the way I prefer to have it done. I know that you've seen it. To say that you haven't seen it is false.
I'm not saying that I haven't seen
That's
it,
exactly
but
what you said.
if it's being admitted, it needs to be part of the record, which the record is being recorded.
I don't care how we do it. I can either play the video first and lay the foundation.
Well, it just depends. So we'll find out how Ms. Schmelzer wants it done each time, apparently.
All right, I'm gonna play the video.
One time. No.
All right, Your Honor, I move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 2.
Any objections?
The video that was just played is not the video that I was provided as Exhibit 2. The audio was very different than what I heard. I don't know if there's a technical issue.
Okay, well, now you've seen Exhibit 2. Do you have an objection to after seeing it?
As to the one that was played and the audio that was just played, I have no objection.
All right, Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Ms. Klusterman, can you explain the circumstances that were transpiring at the time you filmed Plaintiff's Exhibit 2?
Yes. I was in the house and I was seeing a situation like this unfold, and I had tried to de-escalate the situation by talking to Kevin prior, and that was not happening, and he was getting upset with Kelvin.
And during this incident, did you try and intervene on your child's behalf?
Yes, absolutely.
Did you ask the defendant to lower his voice?
Yes, I did.
Did the defendant lower his voice?
He did not.
Did you call Child Protective Services after this incident?
I did not.
Why not?
I was scared, and at this point I figured I could handle it and de-escalate it on my own.
And why did you decide to start filming the defendant?
Because at this point I tried to do many things to de-escalate, and originally I wanted to show Kevin and be like, look, do you realize what how you're talking to our children, what you're doing with the stuff that you're saying? And I wanted to do that.
And did you comfort the minor child after this interaction with the defendant?
Yes.
How did you comfort the child?
Talked to him and comforted him physically. I think he was getting in the shower, so as he was heading that way, walked down the hall, said, hey, are you okay? I'm so sorry you had to hear that sort of thing.
And Ms. Klusterman, after this incident, Plaintiff's Exhibit 2 incident, did the defendant's method of discipline with the children change?
No.
Ms. Klusterman, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to watch Plaintiff's Exhibit 5. I'm going to stop now and clarify, would this court like me to play the video first or to proceed with foundation first?
Foundation.
Okay.
Ms. Klusterman, can you explain what Exhibit 5 is?
Yes, it's Kevin talking.
And who is Kevin?
He is the defendant.
And did you film Plaintiff's Exhibit 5?
Yes, I did.
And when did you film Plaintiff's Exhibit 5?
April 14, 2017.
And is Plaintiff's Exhibit 5 the entirety of the clip you filmed at that time?
Yes, it is the full clip.
Is plaintiff's exhibit 5 an accurate representation of the defendant at the time you filmed it?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I've moved to admit plaintiff's exhibit 5.
I guess we're watching it first. This is never how I do it, ever. So.
I would like to do it how you want to do it if you tell me which way you want me
Well,
to.
because I don't want to deal with an objection. It doesn't matter. It's just, you don't, like, if you're in the court, you don't show the court an exhibit and just say, okay, here. In other words, I don't usually watch videos before I say whether it's admissible. That's why we went over it off the record, but it's YouTube. It's different. How can we eliminate an objection on this issue so we can proceed as though you both think it's fair? That's all that matters to me. It's just presenting the same thing. It doesn't, it's just someone interjecting their own preference on the court. That's all it is.
Okay.
Well, Your Honor, as we discussed off the record, and I'll say on the record that I do have an objection to exhibit 5 because the child speaks in this video.
Understood, but now we're talking about whether you want to view it. You said earlier that I can't talk about admissibility until we watched it. So do you want to watch it first and then you'll bring that up, or how do you want to handle it? This is exactly why I don't like to have it played first.
I don't know, because the problem was with exhibit 2, what was played was different than what the audio was different.
Understood that part.
So
right.
that makes it hard for me, because if it's different, if I say no objection prior to viewing it and then it's played and it's different than the one I already viewed, I've already not objected to it. I mean, videos are in and of themselves and audio very complicated ways to admit information, and they always have been. And I do my best not to use them as much as, unless it's absolutely necessary. So at least in the proposed exhibit 5 that I was provided, the child is speaking in that, and I would believe that's hearsay, and this child has not been presented as a witness that's subject to cross-examination as to why they may have said what they said or what was going on. That's my objection, my preliminary objection. But if exhibit 5 is played and it's different than the one I viewed, I may have a different objection. I'm not sure.
Understood. Is the child speaking in this video, Ms. Lentz?
Your Honor, I believe there is a child's voice in the video. However, I believe it fits into a category for the hearsay exception.
Which one specifically?
Well, first I'll preface by saying the reason the video is being offered is not for the child's statements. The child's statements, the content of them have no relevancy to why I'm offering this. I'm offering it for defendants' methods of discipline. Moreover, I think that the minor child crying in a statement where he says nothing would be permitted under MRE 803-2, as he's making a statement in relation to a startling event at the time of the stressful event, which is the defendant yelling at him.
Well, we know that there are going to be two. What I thought that there was a distinction between there was one where the child's crying and the one where the child is making direct statements.
In this video, Your Honor, the child is crying and there's one word said, and the word is nothing. And I would say that crying is not a testimonial statement under a hearsay. And
I would agree with that, but that's why I thought we went over two different ones. I wasn't aware that there were speaking in the crying video as well.
And Your Honor, exhibit 2 was the one where the child was just crying on the audio that I had. Exhibit 5, exhibit 5, and there was one other, exhibit 3 were the ones where the child is also speaking and saying words.
And as to exhibit 5, there is one word said by the child, and it's the word nothing.
Well, I think you're going to have to build a foundation to support the hearsay exception. I don't believe you've done that thus far.
Okay. Ms. Klusterman, in exhibit 5, can you explain the circumstances that are transpiring? I know it's difficult when you can't see the video.
Yes. I know it's an altercation.
Your Honor, can I play the video for
No,
my,
I know which one it's in the car. And it's between Kevin and Kelvin. And this is when this is like when I started realizing like something's not right. And that's this video.
and Ms. Kloosterman, would you characterize the situation in this video as elevated or stressful?
Yes, very much so.
Ms. Kloosterman, did the child respond in a certain fashion in this video?
He's in his car seat. And so he just is taking the brunt of the screaming and the yelling.
Is your child crying in the video?
Yes.
Your Honor, given Ms. Kloosterman's statements, I would offer this under MRE 803-2. I think the minor child is directly responding to a stressful situation at the time the situation is transpiring. Furthermore, I don't believe that crying is a testimonial statement for hearsay. So that issue would be the child's statement of the word nothing.
Yeah, I continue to agree with the fact that the crying is not a statement. But let's play it and I'll determine. I mean, Ms. Schmelzer still has a standing objection. Play it, we'll see it, and I'll determine whether it fits under that. I think at this point, in terms of testimony, we've got enough to show that it likely meets the exception under 803-2, possibly 3. But we'll see.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Get your feet off my seat. What is your problem? What is your problem? I asked you a question.
Nothing.
I like how you tell everybody that I'm being the jerk. I'm being a jerk because I'm sick of you being a little punk. You think you're being funny? Do you think we like to spend time with you right now? You turning 8 and 9 has been the biggest pain in my butt because you're a little jerk is what you are.
I would renew my statement, Your Honor, that the child's statement of nothing falls under MRE 803-2 or 3, and I would offer Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Ms. Schmelzer, did you want to make any further objection or comment?
Your Honor, I am reading the hearsay objection 803-2, a statement relating to a startling event or condition made while the declarant was under the stress of excitement caused by the event or condition. I haven't heard any testimony about what event or condition this child was under the stress or excitement of. And so, yeah, again, I just don't see it. I don't see it as fitting into that exception without a better foundation laid. But one hasn't been laid to this point.
Okay, well, I believe it fits under 803-2. I think the stress and the excitement of the event is defendant clearly yelling at the child. I think you can tell by the child's reaction, he's stressed out. So over objection, it's admitted. Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Ms. Kloosterman, can you explain the circumstances that were transpiring at the time that you filmed Exhibit 5?
Yes, we were getting ready to leave the house and Kelvin was kicking the back of the seat.
And can you clarify, in Exhibit 5, the defendant is he like leaning over a console? Is he in the back of the car? Where is he?
He came back around and was like in the sliding door of the minivan.
And Ms. Kloosterman, during this incident, did you try and intervene on the child's behalf?
I did before I started videoing. I had asked, let's talk, like, because he was kicking the back of the seat and it was driving Kevin crazy. And so I had said, hey, stop, to Kevin, said, stop, let's talk to Kelvin about this. And he, like, it just happened one too many times, and he jumped out of the car and went around, and that's when he started the conversation with Kelvin,
And
or
Ms.
the monologue with Kelvin.
Did you ask the defendant to lower his voice?
Yes, I did.
And did he lower his voice?
No, he did not.
Did you call Child Protective Services after this incident?
I did not.
Why not?
I was scared, and I thought I could handle it myself.
And why did you start filming?
Because at this point, again, I wanted to try to prove that this was happening. I would talk to Kevin about it, and he didn't realize how loud, angry he would get. And I knew that I had to do something, then that's what I chose to do.
And Ms. Klosterman, after the incident, did you comfort your child at all?
Yes, I got out of the car and went around, and I don't know if I unbuckled him or not, but I went and sat next to him and before we left the driveway.
And Ms. Klosterman, after this incident in April of 2017, did the defendant's methods of discipline with the children change?
No.
Ms. Klosterman, in a second, I'm going to ask you to look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 3. Can you describe what Plaintiff's Exhibit 3 is?
Yes, it is Kevin again talking.
And Kevin is the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Did you film Exhibit 3?
I did.
When did you film Exhibit 3?
February 23 of 2019.
And in Plaintiff's Exhibit 3, is that the entirety of the clip you filmed at that time?
Yes, it's the entire clip.
And is it an accurate representation of the defendant in February 23, 2019?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'm going to offer Plaintiff's Exhibit 3.
Is this the one where we have the statements for sure?
I believe.
Ms. Meltzer, I'll let you respond. I just wanted to clarify for my notes as well.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Yes, this is the one, as far as the Exhibit 3 that I reviewed or was proposed to me. So I do have to have a preliminary objection here. The child is speaking, and I do not believe this one falls under the excited utterance exception to hearsay, because the child is actually conversing back and forth about the topic at hand that's being discussed with Mr. Klosterman, which is, laundry and a room being picked up and whatnot. I don't think it doesn't meet the excited utterance exception that we discussed in the last one. So I do have a standing objection to this one.
Response.
Your Honor, first of all, I would say that the child's statements don't fall into the definition of hearsay, as they're not being offered for the truth of what the child is saying. The purpose of Plaintiff's Exhibit 3 is for the truth of defendant's own statements, and the child's content is irrelevant. Secondly, I would believe that the minor child statements do fall under the excited utterance exception to the hearsay rule if this court deems the statements to be hearsay, because again, similar to Plaintiff's Exhibit 2, this child is responding to an event in which they're being yelled at, and the child's response to being yelled at, I believe, is a stressful situation, and the response is made at the time of the stressful situation.
Well, why do we need a conversation between the child? Why do you want the child's statement, this conversation put on the record? I mean, I'm going to do it in camera, and can't your client just describe it? I mean, why would we put the child in this position?
Your Honor, I believe that the exhibit is extremely relevant to how this client or how the defendant disciplines his children. And I think the volume and veracity at which he speaks to the children is something that can't be conveyed simply by my client's testimony. I understand that the court may find it, I guess, redundant, but I think plaintiff has the ability to present her case in a way through admissible evidence.
No, I'm sure I understand, but ability to present your case, that's not really what I'm presenting. I'm trying to protect a child, and your client wants to put the child in this circumstance, which I don't really feel is appropriate.
And I think
have children testify for this reason, and I'm going to be conducting the in-camera. Are you denying that it's a discussion between the two? You can claim it as yelling or arguing or however you want to say, but they're interacting. I mean, is this different than the last video where obviously, I don't believe that statement, the statement the child made. That was just a response when being yelled at. If this is an argument between the two of them, I don't necessarily need to watch that. Your client can describe it. There's nothing unreliable about that testimony.
I understand, Your Honor. I'll move on.
I mean, the part of it is, and I just want to explain, I mean, part of this is, I'm not suggesting it's necessarily inappropriate, like something you're trying to do that's wrong. It's just, I'm not so sure that it's something the court needs to view in order to keep. Obviously, we try our best to protect, or at least I'll put it this way, the court tries its best to protect children from these circumstances. I'm not entirely comfortable.
I mean, if the issue is the children, we could take this portion off Zoom. If it's an issue with the public seeing a child or statements, and I think that resolves the concern about child safety.
Well, it's also putting the child in between two parents. That's what I'm worried about too. There's still a safety risk there in trying to protect the children from what their parents are doing to them in court. I mean, that's a reality. So I guess I'll take it off of YouTube and I can watch it and decide. But
All right, Your Honor.
I really don't appreciate putting videos of children like this in court. I think it's hyperbolic. This isn't a jury trial. This is a bench trial.
I understand, Your Honor.
I'll watch it off of YouTube and decide based on the rules of evidence. But
I hear your comments, Your Honor, and I will move on.
It's just I take that part seriously. So I can go off of YouTube here and watch it and see.
You're good. I'll move on. I'll withdraw.
Well, but I want you to be able to preserve this as an issue for an objection. So I don't. If you want me to view it that way, you can. Just tell me what you want. Do you want me to turn it off YouTube? I'm only going to view it off of YouTube. That's all I'm asking. If you're withdrawing your request to have it admitted, that's a different story because that.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Ms. Lentz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kloosterman, after February 23, or I guess, never mind, scratch that. Ms. Kloosterman, we watched a video, it's not admitted. Did the defendant's behavior improve after that incident?
No, it did not.
Okay, Ms. Kloosterman, I'm gonna have you watch a video here shortly that I've labeled Plaintiff's Exhibit 4. When did you film Plaintiff's Exhibit 4?
December 28th of 2018.
And who is the voice in Plaintiff's Exhibit 4?
Kevin's.
Is Plaintiff's 4 the entirety of the clip you filmed?
Yes.
And Ms. Kloosterman, is Plaintiff's 4 an accurate representation of what the defendant said to you on December 28th, 2018?
Yes, it is.
Or excuse me, that was said.
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to offer Plaintiff's Exhibit 4.
You want to watch it first or?
I do not have a preliminary objection, but again, because of the audio differences, I'm going to preserve my right to later object after viewing it.
Understood. Thank you. Let's play it and then I'll decide. We'll cover it from there.
Okay. Maybe if I turn it on.
I can put them in Florida, cat food all over. You do not act like that. And I'm sick of it. You embarrassed me over there. If you want people to hate you, keep it up. Because they sure as hell don't want you in their house.
Ms. Klusterman, who is the defendant talking to in plaintiff's exhibit 4?
Kelvin.
Your Honor, I'd move to offer plaintiff's exhibit 4 into evidence.
No objection.
Admitted.
Ms. Klusterman, can you explain the circumstances that were transpiring at the time you filmed plaintiff's exhibit 4?
Yes, we had just gotten home from hanging out with friends, and Kelvin is 10 at the time, and they, as boys do, he made a mess in their house, to which we cleaned up. Wasn't a big deal. It was toys all over, but Kevin saw it differently when we
And-
got home.
Ms. Klusterman, did you try and intervene on the behalf of the minor child?
Yes, I did.
How did you try to intervene?
I tried to talk to Kevin, physically putting myself in the situation between the two of them, and it was no use.
And did you ask the defendant to lower his voice?
Yes.
Did the defendant lower his voice?
No,
Did you call Child Protective Services after this incident?
I did not,
Why not?
because I was scared and I didn't know. I thought I don't want anything happen to our family, and I didn't know what else to do. I tried talking to Kevin again. It was doing the best I could at the time.
And Ms. Klusterman, did your minor child come to you for comfort after this interaction?
Yes.
How did you comfort him?
Hugs, as always, trying to de-escalate the situation, tell him it's not him. I a lot of times just said, this is, sometimes dad gets mad, it's okay. I tried to like de-escalate the situation and also like take blame off of Kelvin, and just say sometimes, we have to say things we don't mean. Maybe dad had a bad day. Something like that to not even make Kevin sound like the bad guy, but just to try to de-escalate the situation and tell Kelvin that it's not him.
And Ms. Klusterman, after this incident that was just watched in exhibit 4, did the defendant's method of discipline with the children change?
No.
I'm going to ask you to watch plaintiff's exhibit 1. Before I do that, Ms. Klusterman, can you explain what plaintiff's exhibit 1 is?
Yes, it's a video of Kevin.
And who is Kevin talking to in the video?
Kelvin.
And did you film plaintiff's exhibit 1?
I did.
When did you film plaintiff's exhibit 1?
March 7 of 2023.
And Ms. Klusterman, is plaintiff's exhibit 1 an accurate representation of what the defendant said on March 7th, 2023?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'm going to proceed with playing it. Okay.
This is you. This is your phone. There's no fucking service right now. Don't try to play me, you little shit.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit plaintiff's exhibit 1.
Mr. Sponsor,
No objection.
exhibit 1 admitted.
Ms. Klusterman, can you explain the circumstances that were transpiring at the time you filmed plaintiff's exhibit 1?
Yes, Kelvin's cell phone was not working and we were trying to figure out what to do about it. He has an old phone, and Kevin, he had brought up for a while there, he was transferring the SIM card between the two phones to see, because one wasn't working and one was, and he was complaining that it wasn't working. And when he showed it to Kevin, if I remember correctly, I think the one that he showed Kevin didn't have the SIM card in it. So that's what Kevin's referring to when he says that it's not even the right phone or something like that.
And during this incident, did you try and intervene on Calvin's behalf?
Yeah.
Can you explain how you tried to intervene?
I tried to stop it. This one is probably one of the more recent ones of our kids. And it was also during this time that I knew I needed to do something and to change our environment for these kids. And so this was probably one of the last ones that I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't, I have to do something.
And did you ask the defendant to lower his voice?
Yes, I did.
Did he lower his voice?
No, he did not.
Did you call CPS?
I did not.
Why not?
I knew that I needed to figure out a way to get out of this environment. And that was leading up to one of the reasons why leading up to the divorce.
And Ms. Kloosterman, in that video, I believe the defendant's choice of words were little shit. Is that something he says commonly?
Yes.
Ms. Kloosterman, I'm gonna have you watch what I've labeled as Plaintiff's Exhibit 8. Can you describe what Plaintiff's Exhibit 8 is?
It's Kevin talking.
And did you film Exhibit 8?
I did.
When did you film Exhibit 8?
June 1 of 2020.
And Ms. Kloosterman, at the time you filmed Exhibit 8, which you said, I think June 1, 2020, was it an accurate representation of what the defendant said at the time?
Yes.
Who is the defendant talking to in Plaintiff's Exhibit 8?
I believe it's one of the kids.
Your Honor, I'm going to share my screen for Plaintiff's Exhibit 8.
So disrespectful. You think this is the Kelvin show? Oh.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit Exhibit 8.
Ms. Schmelzer?
As to the video clip that was played, well, I could hear a voice and I could hear a sound. The words being said were inaudible on this end. So my objection would be that it's inaudible. We don't know what was said.
I heard something that's so disrespectful, but I couldn't understand the rest of it.
I can play it again with the volume up if that helps.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, shit. So disrespectful. You think this is the Kelvin show? Oh. No.
I don't know if that was helpful.
I think I heard it all. I'm not going to repeat what I heard. So it's admitted, Exhibit 8. I understand that's over objection, but I'm admitting it.
Ms. Kloosterman, can you explain the circumstances that were transpiring at the time you filmed Exhibit 8?
Yes, they Kevin went downstairs to talk to Kelvin about something, and I could tell he was escalated when he went down there, and that's actually why at the end of the video you see me walking down the stairs, because I'm heading down in that direction to make sure nothing else gets out of hand.
What did you do when you got into the basement?
I talked to both of them, and I talked to Kevin and asked him to lower his voice and if we could talk about this in a different way.
Ms. Kloosterman, did you call Child Protective Services after this incident?
After this one, I did not.
Why not?
Again, I don't want to get other people involved. I feel like I could handle it. I was scared. At this point, again, something needed to happen, but I was at the time doing the only thing I knew how to.
And Ms. Kloosterman, the incidences that we've watched over the past couple of minutes, did any of these occur in the presence of the other minor children?
Yes.
Ms. Kloosterman, in the course of disciplining, has the defendant ever physically hurt one of the children?
Yes.
Ms. Kloosterman, I'm going to ask you to look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 47 in a second here. But can you describe what Plaintiff's Exhibit 47 is?
Yes, it's a picture of Kelvin's arm with a handprint grab mark on it.
And how did Calvin get the handprint?
I believe it was an altercation with him and Kevin like grabbed him to physically move him as a way of his discipline.
Ms. Kloosterman, when did you take plaintiff's exhibit 47? Like, when did you take the picture?
Am I allowed to look at my notes or no?
No, you can
No.
just remember, or maybe it might be easier for you, like if you remember how old Calvin was.
Yeah, he was about 11,
Okay, so what year would that be?
probably 2018, 19.
Your Honor, may I share my screen to look at exhibit 47, or I'm going to be offering it based on my client's testimony just now.
Any objection to this picture?
If I may, one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have no objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. Exhibit 47 is admitted.
All right, Ms. Kloosterman, hopefully you can see my screen here. I know we have it in front of us as well. I'm gonna zoom out a bit. All right, Ms. Kloosterman, can you explain the circumstances that transpired prior to the grabbing of the arm?
I don't know specifically, unfortunately, but I do know that there was an altercation, and this picture was taken the day after.
And did you try and intervene during the altercation?
Yes, I always do.
What did you do at this point in time to intervene?
Asked if we could talk about it, please stop. Is there a better way that we can convey whatever Kelvin's doing wrong to him rather than like physically manhandling him?
And did Calvin require comfort after this incident?
Yes,
How did you comfort him?
as I always do, trying to talk him down from the situation, making him realize that this is not him and that this is something that we can learn from, and we got to figure out a way.
Ms. Kloosterman, did you contact CPS?
I did not,
Why did you not contact CPS?
because I was scared and I knew that if I were to do that, something else could make it worse.
Ms. Kloosterman, I'm going to move on to factor C of the best interest factors, which involves the capacity and disposition of the parties to provide the children with food, clothing, and medical care. So I'm going to talk about that with you now. During your marriage, who typically prepared dinner for the children?
I would say 75% of the time myself, 25% Kevin.
Who typically prepared breakfast for the children?
Me,
Who typically prepared lunch?
me.
Who typically did the grocery shopping during your marriage?
Mostly me. I like the big trips, planning the meals, that kind of thing. If we needed things here or there, he would definitely jump in and pick them up at the grocery store.
And Ms. Kloosterman, on September 17th, 2018, did you ask the defendant to pack the children's sandwiches?
Yes, I did.
Did the defendant pack the children's sandwiches?
He did not.
Did you ask why he did not pack the children's sandwiches?
Yes, he said that the girls didn't want sandwiches in their lunch.
And in your opinion, was that an appropriate decision for the children to make given their age at the time?
No,
Ms. Kloosterman, on October 16th, 2021, did you ask the defendant to make the children breakfast?
yes,
Did the defendant make the children breakfast that day?
he did not.
Did you ask the defendant why he did not make the children breakfast?
Well, he like made something and then she refused to eat it, so he was not going to make something else. And I don't remember what the actual meal was, but I know it was a conversation that happened between the two of us later.
And Ms. Kloosterman, on March 1st, 2023, did you pick up dinner for Kelsey and Callie?
Yes, I did.
Did you text the defendant and ask if he or Kelvin needed food?
I sure did.
What was the defendant's response as it pertains to Kelvin?
He said, I don't know if it was after a game or a practice or something, but he said, Kelvin doesn't need food. He can eat at home. He doesn't deserve it.
Ms. Kloosterman, during your marriage, who typically cleaned up the kitchen after food preparation?
Me.
During your marriage, who typically did the laundry?
Kevin does do laundry. Mostly me. He does a great job of like washing, drying, that kind of stuff, but like as opposed to like folding, putting it away, not leaving it in a pile, that was me.
And during your marriage, who typically got the children ready for bed at night?
Me.
What does your children's bedtime routine consist of?
Getting them ready for bed, brushing teeth, combing hair if they need to, making sure their lunches, or not lunches, making sure their backpacks are ready to go in the morning, tucking them in at bed, listening to prayers. We always had a time of conversation. That was kind of our time to recap the day and talk about what the next day is going to look like.
And during your marriage, who typically got the children up in the mornings?
Me.
And what does your children's morning routine consist of?
Pretty similar, getting up, showering if need be, obviously brushing teeth, combing hair, getting dressed, packing lunches, breakfast, getting ready to go out the door.
And Ms. Klusterman, when your children are getting ready in the morning, was the defendant historically like awake?
No, I would usually get the kids up, get myself going, and then I would wake him up because he would take the kids to school.
And my next question, how do your children get to school in the mornings?
Kevin brings the kids, whoever at the time, whether it was Calvin or Callie, to East Middle. When the kids were going with me up to Sutton's Bay, I would take the kids up, but now that we live in town, they walk across the street to Central and Eastern.
Ms. Klusterman, has there ever been an incident where the defendant overslept and the children weren't brought to school?
Yes.
And approximately how many times would you say that's happened?
Probably 3 to 5.
How do your children get home in the afternoons?
Kelvin and Kelsey walk home. Callie will usually ride the bus. Sometimes she'll call Kevin or I to pick her up, or grandma.
And during your marriage, who typically purchased clothing for the children?
Me.
Who arranged for the bills to be paid during your marriage? And I'm not saying like who earned the money, but like Spectrum needs to be paid. Who made sure that bill was paid on time?
I would say both of us.
On September 28th, 2021, did you ask the defendant if he could bring one of the children's water bottles to school?
Yes, I did.
What did the defendant say?
He said he was too busy. It didn't fit in his schedule.
Were you able to bring the child's water bottle to school?
Yes, I had to leave school because they needed it. There was some event happening that they needed a water bottle for. And so, yes, I left school so that I could do that because he just said it was my responsibility to figure it out.
If the children typically needed something brought to school, who would do that for them?
Typically myself.
And Ms. Klusterman, if the children needed like a note for school, like for example, to get out early for an appointment, who would write that note?
Me.
Ms. Klusterman, on April 10th, 2023, did you ask the defendant to write a note for Callie so that she could ride the bus home with a friend?
I did.
And did the defendant write the note?
He did not.
How did you solve the problem?
Callie called and said,
And remember, we're
yeah, that's hearsay. I ended up calling the school and giving permission for her to go home with that friend after school.
Ms. Klusterman, during your marriage, who typically scheduled the children's doctor's appointments?
Me.
Who took the children to their doctor's appointments?
Me.
And who is your children's pediatrician?
Dr. Walter Meeker.
Ms. Klusterman, on November 21st, 2014, who took Calvin to urgent care?
Me.
On January 15th, 2014, who took Kelsey to the doctor?
Me.
On February 2nd, 2015, who took Kelsey to the doctor for a dislocated
Can we
ankle?
just slow down a little bit because these dates are rolling really fast and I need to write them down. So would you mind just slowing down just a little bit? Thank you.
Not at all. I understand it's easy when I'm looking at my notes. On September 10th, 2015, who took Callie to urgent care for a fracture?
Me.
On June 29th, 2016, who took Kelsey to the doctor?
Me.
On February 6th, 2017, who took Calvin to the emergency room for a broken nose?
Me.
On February 15th, 2017, who scheduled Callie an appointment with a dermatologist?
Me.
On March 3rd, 2017, who took Callie to the urgent care for a dog bite?
Me.
On October 2nd, 2017, who took Calvin to get a physical?
Me.
On December 3rd, 2017, who took Callie to the urgent care for a cut on her finger?
Me.
On December 11th, 2017, who took Calvin to get his stitches out?
Me.
On January 24th, 2018, who took Callie to Dr. Meeker?
Me.
On October 12th, 2018, who took Callie to Dr. Meeker?
Me.
On January 17th, 2019, who took Kelvin to Dr. Meeker?
Me.
On January 25th, 2019, who picked up the children's prescriptions?
Me.
On March 6th, 2020, who scheduled Calvin a doctor's appointment for his knee?
Me.
On January 4th, 2021, who took Callie to the doctor for a broken wrist?
Me.
On April 14th, 2021, who took care of Calvin's COVID test so he could play tennis?
Me.
On June 7th, 2021, who called the doctor about a wart one of the children had?
Me.
On June 9th, 2021, who took Calvin to Dr. Meeker?
Me.
On March 6th, 2022, who stayed up with Callie when she was sick at night?
Me.
And who called the doctor's office for Callie the next morning?
Me.
Who picked up Callie's prescription once it was issued?
Me.
On May 31st, 2023, who brought Callie to the doctor?
Me.
And what was Callie diagnosed with on May 31st?
Strep throat.
Was Callie given a prescription in May of 2023?
Yes, she was. Amoxicillin.
Did the doctor give you a prescription for the other children at the time?
He did. I had told him that they were all exhibiting the same symptoms, and so he's seen them their whole life. So he gave me 3 prescriptions for amoxicillin to treat all of them.
And did you deliver the prescription to the defendant on the weekend of June 2nd, 2023?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain how you delivered the prescription to defendant?
Yep, I had a Ziploc bag with a note card in it that had each of their names on it. It's the teacher and me, but it was like check marks for Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. I knew that then when I would get the kids back Sunday night, they wouldn't need a pill then. So there was enough pills for each kid, for each dosage, in a Ziploc bag, nice signed and sealed, and handed it to him.
Ms. Glusserman, to your knowledge, did the children receive their antibiotics that weekend?
I know they did not,
How do you know that?
because a couple weeks later, he handed me the Ziploc bag and said, hey, I found this in my truck.
Ms. Klusterman, in the past 15 years, approximately how many times has the defendant taken the children to a doctor's appointment?
Probably 5 to 8 times.
Did the defendant take the Calvin to the doctor on February 15th, 2018?
No.
Ms. Klusterman,
Oh, sorry, that was the date he did take them to. Yes.
defendant took the
Yes,
Kevin to the
yep,
doctor on
Kevin
February?
took him in February.
Okay. And what did the defendant report to you about his experience at the doctor?
He said he hated it. Now he knows why he never goes. He said he felt stupid because he didn't know how to fill out the paperwork. He was texting me while I was teaching, asking me questions about the paperwork and how to fill it out, like medical history stuff that you fill out every time.
And from your texting communication with the defendant at this point in time, did he appear concerned about Calvin's health?
No, he did not. I remember texting Kevin specifically saying, hey, please tell Dr. Meeker that Kelvin's had a fever for the last 10 days on and off, anywhere from 99 to 104. And Kevin's response through text message was, he seems fine. This is just another instance where we can't believe what he says.
And during your marriage to the defendant, who typically scheduled the children's dentist appointments?
Me.
Who typically took the children to the dentist?
Me.
On November 14th, 2018, who took the 3 children to the dentist?
Me.
On April 27th, 2020, who brought Kelvin to the orthodontist?
Me.
On August 18th, 2020, who brought Kelsey to the dentist?
Me.
On November 3rd, 2021, who took all 3 children to the dentist?
Me.
On April 11th, 2022, did you ask the defendant if he could take Callie to the orthodontist?
Yes, I did.
Was the defendant able to take Callie?
He was not.
Why?
He didn't say. I asked if he was working and he said he wasn't working, but he had other plans. So at that point, he told me to ask his mom.
And who ended up taking Callie to the orthodontist?
His mom, Cheryl.
Ms. Klusterman, in the past 15 years, approximately how many times has the defendant taken the children to the dentist or orthodontist?
Probably 5.
Ms. Klusterman, have you always provided health insurance on the minor children?
Yes, I have.
During your marriage, who would get up with the children at night if they were sick?
Me.
Was the defendant willing to help in these situations?
No.
Ms. Klusterman, I'm going to ask you to look at what I have labeled as Plaintiff's Exhibit 54. Your Honor, this is not a video, so just to clarify, am I pulling the exhibit up right now, or are we still doing foundation first before I ask her to look at it?
Well, she can look at it as the witness and describe what it is.
I just want to make sure that I'm doing it the way that, okay. Ms. Klusterman, we have in front of us Exhibit 54 plaintiffs. Can you explain to me what Exhibit 54 is?
Yes, it is. I'm telling Kevin via text message at 11:22 in the evening on January 10. Kelvin's burning up. I feel like I should sleep by him tonight, either on his floor or him in our room.
And Ms. Klusterman, Exhibit 54 is the phone number in the upper left-hand portion to. Is that the phone number that you typically use to reach the defendant?
Yes.
At?
Yep.
And is the phone number above? Phone number?
Yes, that's my phone number.
And Ms. Klusterman, is plaintiff's exhibit 4, is it the same as when you provided it to me?
Yes.
Is it an accurate representation of your conversation with the defendant on January 10th, 2015?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer exhibit 54.
I just had one question real quick before I turn it over to Ms. Schmelzer. This was January 10th of what year?
2015, Your Honor.
Ms. Schmelzer, any objection to 54?
Well, 50, I'm a little confused here because she just talked about January 10th of 2015, but Exhibit 54 goes into all the way into January 12th. It's an ongoing string. So are we just admitting text messages from January 10th? Are we admitting the whole thing?
I can remedy that. Ms. Klusterman, is this a accurate description of your conversation starting from January 10th, 2015 and going until January 12th, 2015?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would offer exhibit 54.
I mean, I guess I don't understand the relevance to all of these text messages. We were talking about a child being sick, and now I mean, these text messages are just back and forth about other stuff too. So.
And Your Honor, I think that the point of relevance here is we're talking about the capacity of the parties to provide medical care for the children. My client is reaching out to the defendant to help with medical care for the child, and I think the defendant's response in regard to that request is directly relevant.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, that's January 10th. And then January 11th, there's things like, can you stop and get milk on the way home? I'll be home in a couple hours. I have to check out this thing or plow all day. Or, I mean, it's a conversation back and forth about the parties just living a life of trying to work and take care of children. That's not what, that's why I'm confused is what are you going into the 12th about? What is the relevance to this?
Well, I offered the 12th because you had an issue with the date. And so then I clarified that this is a full conversation between the parties. My point of relevance is into the first message on the 10th. If you prefer that page 2 is dropped from the exhibit, that's fine.
It's not that I have a preference. These are your exhibits and I'm trying to figure out how they fit into this matter or what the relevance is because you know, the testimony was about the 10th, but you prepared an exhibit that's 2 pages long that goes into the 12th. So if you're seeking to admit all this entire conversation through the 12th, then my objection is to relevance.
And as to relevance, Your Honor, I would renew my initial statement that this is an ongoing conversation about the children not feeling well. Also, I think throughout the rest of it, it's about child-related things. Can you get the kids dinner? I need to lay down. Can you take her downstairs? Did you forget? I mean, this is all directly related to the children.
If it's all related to the children, I'll admit it as is. Exhibit 54 is admitted.
I'd like to maintain my standing objection because I don't think it's all related to the children, but I know the court hasn't seen it yet.
I haven't, so, but can we just remedy this by, is the first page the one that you want? She already offered that would be fine, so you could take page 2 off, so that's what I'll do, is just omit page 2 and only review page 1. So be it. I'm not sure it's that complicated of an issue.
I don't really care. The
All right,
part-
so you're fine with 54 being just the first page,
Yes,
and there's still a standing objection, but I'm not gonna. I'm only gonna review page 1. So whatever I don't know if there was an objection to that or not.
You hold it until the page breaks.
all right, Ms. Kloosterman. I ask you to look at page 1 of plaintiff's exhibit 54. Again, you text the defendant on January 10th, 2015 at 11:22 p.m. Can you read your text messages?
Yep, this is Kelvin is burning up. I feel like I should sleep by him tonight, either in his floor or him in here.
And can you read the defendant's response at 11:25 p.m.?
Yep, he says, I can do whatever you want after you deep throat me.
Ms. Kloosterman, during your marriage, when you would ask for assistance in relation to the children, was it common or uncommon for the defendant to respond with a request for sexual gratification?
Very common.
And Ms. Kloosterman, what would happen if you did not acquiesce to defendant's request?
I wouldn't get the help, or I would be ignored.
Ms. Kloosterman, during the marriage, did the defendant ever accuse you of not contributing towards marital bills?
Yes,
Were these accusations made in front of the children?
yes,
Ms. Kloosterman, have you sought out any counseling for the children since the divorce started?
yes. Starting way back in May, probably end of April. As a teacher, I know that how important it is for these kids to have someone that they can talk to. And so I had talked to Kevin probably from the get-go and said, hey, we need to get our kids into some counseling. He did not agree at first. He thought it was stupid and crazy. And then eventually he did come around. We kind of went back and forth for about 3 months on who they would see. I probably called between 17 and 25 people. Traverse City is a very hard town to get counseling services right now. They're full, they're backed up. I put our kids on lots of waiting lists. So as of just recently, we've both have finally agreed on a counselor for the kids.
And Ms. Kloosterman, on Friday, October 13th, 2023, did one of the children's counselors contact you?
Yes,
Was the defendant included on the message?
no,
Ms. Kloosterman, factor D of the best interest factors looks at the length of time the child has lived in a stable, satisfactory environment and the desirability of maintaining continuity. And I'm gonna ask you some questions under that, okay?
okay,
Do you and your children have any set routines when they're in your care?
yes.
Can you explain what those routines are?
Yes. When we do meals, one of the girls usually set the table. Kelvin usually cleans up the table if he's around. If he's not, he's obviously not around. He might be at practice. Bedtime routines. The time of the routine varies depending on what practice they have or other things that are going on, but the consistency for that, I always tuck them in, I hear their prayers, we talk. Like that has been their consistent routine since they were little. Same thing for morning, get them up slow, eat breakfast, get them ready to go out the door.
And Ms. Kloosterman, do you believe that routines are important?
I think routines are extremely important. It's setting boundaries and expectations, but it's allowing them safety and they know what to expect. And it's as a teacher, I mean, we're taught to have routines in our classroom all the time. So it's the same thing at home.
And Ms. Kloosterman, have you and the defendant reached an agreement about the marital home?
Yes,
And are you retaining the home or is the defendant?
the defendant, Kevin, is.
Will you be receiving a sum of money for your equity for the marital home?
Yes.
And once you receive that equity, what is your plan for housing?
My plan is to purchase a home it's an extremely low inventory market right now. But if I can't purchase one, I have plans to rent until I can purchase.
And Ms. Klusterman, do you have any doubts regarding your ability to find either a rental or a home that's satisfactory for the children?
Nope, not at all.
Ms. Klusterman, do you think it's common for parties in a divorce case for one party to have to move out?
Yes.
Ms. Klusterman, factor E of the best interest factors examines the permanence of the family unit or the existing or proposed custodial home, and I want to talk about that briefly. Do you have any pets at the marital residence?
Yes, we do.
What sort of pets do you have?
We have 1 cat and 2 dogs.
And what's going to happen to the cat once the divorce is finalized?
Copper is coming with me.
What's going to happen to the dogs?
The dogs will also be coming with me.
Are the children bonded to those pets?
Yes, they are.
Ms. Klusterman, in the defendant's referee status conference brief that was filed on July 11th, 2023, the defendant accuses you of obtaining the dogs in an attempt to buy the children's affections. Is that true?
Absolutely not.
Can you explain why you obtained the dogs?
Yes. Our entire marriage, I have been asking, pleading for a dog for a short amount of time. In 2015, 16, we had one for a few months. It was always a point of contention for us. Kevin doesn't like dogs. He doesn't like what they do to his yard and his line of work. I understand that. However, our children and myself, again, not hearsay, myself have always wanted a dog. Grew up with a dog. I think dogs are wonderful. In my classroom, therapy dogs, right? My goal was always to have a therapy dog for my classroom. Throughout our marriage, however, Kevin would not allow us to have a dog. However, it was a huge point of contention, and the fact that there was times where I would do sexual favors for him or other male friends of his in order to, per se, earn a dog. And so it was my understanding that if I were to complete this task, that I would then be allowed or permitted to get a dog. Multiple times, many times, that was not followed through. And so and then a few months after he had left the house, I had decided that this was the right time and I needed companionship and something to occupy my time with. So I got the 2 dogs.
And Ms. Klusterman,